Hello, I'm Brett Weber. I serve on the Grand Forks City Council, and I'm president of the city's Jobs Development Authority. I'm joined today by Mayor Brown, Jonathan Holt, the local business owner and the vice chair of the committee that advises the JDA, Keith Lund, the executive director of the Grand Forks Region Economic Development Corporation, Blue Weber of the Grand Forks Downtown Development Association, Barry Wolford, the president and CEO of the Grand Forks East Grand Forks Chamber of Commerce, and Paula Anderson, the owner of Sterling Carpet One and the current Chamber Board president. I know that we are a resilient community. I also understand that our toughest days are still ahead of us. Those of us living through this time will remember it the rest of our lives. Here in Grand Forks, we're going to remember that we came together and supported one another. Grand Forks and the state of North Dakota have moved quickly in relation to COVID-19, and that's going to help us in the long term. But this is not our only crisis. The retail sector has been wrestling with the changing environment for months or even years. But we have strong collaborative systems in place to bolster our resiliency, and Grand Forks has the ability to handle adversity and to recover quickly from difficult times. For now, once we survive the current crises of COVID, the flood, and the economic challenges that you are at the forefront of, we will engage a social and economic recovery plan. These listening sessions are the first step in surviving the crisis and in developing that long-term plan for our successful future. These listening sessions are meant to gather information from you, the business community, about exactly what those challenges are, and to hear your ideas for solutions and support. We'll share these ideas with our state and federal partners as they have requested. Together, we'll guide them as they develop and package resources to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. At the same time, we can't just wait for the state or the feds to come to our rescue. With your help today, we're beginning to shape our local approach to economic recovery. We're going to start by providing a brief overview of the very limited information we currently have. And then, most importantly, what we want to do today is we want to hear from you about specific issues, concerns, or questions you have related to this crisis. This is not about us providing answers to all of your questions. Instead, this will be the first of several meetings. In fact, yesterday we had a meeting about the food sector, largely focused on grocery stores, restaurants. Today, we're looking at the retail sector. Tomorrow, our focus is on manufacturing, and on Thursday, we'll be looking at professional services. As we learn more about the challenges for each of these sectors, we'll dig deeper into whatever issues you bring up today and move the ball forward. Here's how this is going to work. First, as you may have noticed, all the participants, aside from our panelists, are muted. This is to address the logistics of bringing so many people together and to ensure that nobody is talking over one another. We'll be utilizing the chat function as our main means of hearing from you. If you hover your cursor, if you take a moment right now and hover your cursor over the bottom of the screen, you'll see a toolbar pop up. Go to the chat function near the middle of the bottom and open that up. That will open a chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to enter any questions, comments, concerns, or issues that you have. We'll then try to cover as many of those as possible in the limited time we have. Additionally, the chat window allows us to retain a transcript of all the questions asked. That way we won't miss anything, and we'll have an opportunity to follow up and record your questions and concerns. Now what I'd like to do is offer the panelists an opportunity to provide a quick summary of the most pertinent background information we currently understand in terms of existing supports and plans for future programs. And then very quickly, we'll get to your questions and comments. So I'd like to begin, if we've been joined by Mayor Brown. I know that he was giving his daily press conference. Mayor Brown, are you with us yet? While we're waiting for Mayor Brown, I'll go to Keith Lund, president of the local EDC. Mr. Lund.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the call. I just want to mention that the EDC, along with a number of organizations, are hosting information on their websites about the local response and resources available for the coronavirus pandemic. You could access, if you haven't already found one that you're comfortable with, you could access ours at www.grandforks.org. That is information on business financing, unemployment, a number of things. So feel free to use it as a resource. I want to mention that we're in communication with the North Dakota Department of Commerce many times a day, actually. And I saw that Courtney Jensen from the Department of Commerce is online. I'm not sure if others are, so welcome, Courtney. Thanks for joining us. They've been one of our primary sources of information that we like to provide to you. Their feedback really for us to give to you is to, in terms of financing right now, is the number one, work through your local lender. They're the ones that know you most. They have, in many cases, collateral. They have a vested interest in your success. So they're in the best position to respond more quickly to your needs. So that would be the first step. Many of you have heard about the Sba Disaster Loans, and I think we have a slide that we can put up. So that's a program through the Small Business Administration that can provide up to $2 million per business for loans for a number of working capital needs. It's very attractive terms, 3.75%, 30-year fixed, so they can stretch it out and lock it in at a low interest rate. It cannot be, one of the bullet points of eligibility is that you can't be eligible for other loans or other sources. So the feedback that we're getting is SBA loan officers are going to take a look at loan applications, and if they feel that it can be met, the needs can be met locally or at a local lender level, they'll ask you to do that. However, that being said, it's on a first come, first served basis. So really the encouragement is, if you think that that's a resource that you want to access, is to do that right away and be in the queue early. We provided some technical assistance information on the slide. The Small Business Administration can help you with advice on how to package a loan that's complete. And Nicole Evans from our local Small Business Development Center, her email address and phone number is on the screen. The third source of funding or resources would really be at the state level. There are a couple of programs at the North Dakota Development Fund. Quite frankly, they're focused on primary sector, which would be more manufacturing. Some of them have some rural or small community focus, and there's a child care program. So there really isn't anything right now that's specifically targeted at retail. And I think that's why this call is so important. What we're trying to do, as Brett indicated, is to try to understand the needs and where the real pinch points are, so we can provide the feedback, number one, to our state partners, number two, to federal, but also, potentially look at what can be done locally. So we really want to hear from you. We're following the CARE Act very closely. That's got a couple of interesting provisions which is the federal response to COVID-19, which could potentially, if approved, provide additional funding to businesses, as well as direct payments to individuals throughout the United States. So that's, we're following that very closely, and if approved, we'll get that out through our information channels. Two more things, and I'll turn it back to Brett. Number one, for those of you who don't know, the Greater North Dakota is hosting weekly updates of North Dakota agencies on particular topics. Last week was the first, which was pretty broad, so we heard from a lot of folks. This Thursday at 11 a.m., there will be state agencies briefing on two main points. Number one, business emergency financing, which I think would be very important for those on this call. And number two, unemployment insurance. So also, I would think very important for folks on this call. So I encourage you to sign up for that. You can go to northdakotachamber.com or ndchamber.com, pardon me, ndchamber.com. We understand that there have been some glitches for those of you who sign up as a member. So they've been telling us to have everybody sign up as a non-member. They have a lot of availability to host a number of callers, but just in case they're running out of space, I encourage you to sign up quickly. The last piece of information I'll provide is the North Dakota Department of Commerce is preparing a survey. They're going to want to get out and have as many North Dakota businesses respond as possible, trying to understand the scope and what impacts North Dakota businesses are having. They want to do that by various sectors and types of businesses. They are really, this administration, the governor particularly, is really data driven and likes to make decisions based on data. So I encourage Grand Forks area businesses, as well as all businesses across the state, to respond to that, so that they can understand what the needs are and craft policy and respond to those needs. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that pop up, but I think I'll stop there. Brett, thanks for the opportunity.
Very good, thanks, Keith. And again, if you haven't already done so, you'll want to open the chat box by hovering your cursor at the bottom of the screen and then clicking on chat. There are city staff and others who are providing web links and other information as we go. And most importantly, this is where we need to hear from you. We need to hear your questions, your concerns, your issues, so that we can take those to state and federal officials and other partners. With that, Blue Weber from the Grand Forks Downtown Development Association. Blue.
Yeah, I really want to let everyone know that I am, my phone is on 24/7. Please call me with anything. We're constantly in touch with city leadership, being the mayor, being Todd, Pete, as well as whatever we can do. And so one of the things that we've been tackling currently is looking at some of the benefits that we could do for the restaurants, and more details kind of to come and follow, but really wanting to invite everybody, go on over to our website. My phone number is on there. Email me, contact me with any questions. I'm always available. We're trying to do daily emails and update all of our partners and members with what we're seeing and what we're acting on and what's going on around the state. So that's all.
Very good. Thank you, Blue. And Mayor Brown has finished his daily press conference. Mayor Brown.
No, I'm just glad to be part of it. I'm happy to listen and hear the concerns so we can act at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. And then Barry Wilford from the Grand Forks East Grand Forks Chamber of Commerce. And I see you're joined by Paula Anderson today from Sterling Carpet One, and your current board chair.
We're glad to be here today. As a chamber, we're very concerned about both the physical and economic health of our community. Keeping as much commerce moving for as long as we can is very important. To assist with the economic health of the community, the chamber partnered last week with the Herald to establish a listing of Grand Forks business hours and special circumstances. The Herald has published this several times, and it's also on their website. It's updated on a regular basis, so keep sending updates to businesshours@gfherald.com. We also sent out links to apply for unemployment in last Friday's chamber member to member. Keeping people with an income stream to the extent possible is also very important. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mayor Brown and his staff. We had a number of questions yesterday that were posed during our listening session, and the mayor and his staff have already started to work on some of those things and have been very responsive. Finally, I want to encourage everybody to really keep supporting our local businesses. We all need to work together, and we'll get through this working together. Paul, I don't know if you want to add anything at this point, or maybe kind of talk a little bit about your business at some point too.
I guess I'd just like to add that this is a great forum, and one of the main things as we all endure these economic hardships is the communication and to be able to share with each other, get ideas from each other, resources from each other. So this is great. Just on a personal, at Sterling Carpet One, we are still open. We are offering curbside pickup for paint, glass samples, things like that. I have let go all part-time or laid off all part-time. And I'm using this time, as it is slow, for staff training, store thoroughly cleaning. But it is challenging. It's challenging to all of us. And again, the more that we can stick together and use our resources, the better off we'll all be when we get through this.
Very good. Thank you, Paula. One more time, Mayor Brown, thanks for your leadership during these times, and thanks for your support of these listening sessions. I realize now I skipped over an important member of the panel, the co-chair on the Growth Fund Committee, which advises the Jobs Development Authority, a local business owner who's been having to make many of these same tough decisions that you other business owners have been making over the last week. And so Jonathan Holt. Jonathan.
Thanks, Brett. I think a lot of great information has already been stated by the other panelists, so I won't take too much of your time. We certainly want to get into the feedback session. Just a couple things that I would add to echo a little bit of what Paula was saying. You know, in these times, we recognize that you all are pivoting your business models rapidly, and you're doing that with new information that's coming out every hour. So, you know, Barry encouraged all of us to continue to support local businesses. I would also encourage all of you, if possible, to explore potential for unique partnerships with each other during these times. We all are all recognizing challenges that we have within our business models, some of that having to do with licensure and what we're able to do. But I've seen some really great partnerships between local businesses come out of this. So I would encourage you all to think about that as we're moving forward. The other thing that I want to bring up is just one of the goals of this is to try to bring a unified voice to the issues that are facing our community and each one of these industries as we move things forward to local, state, and federal leaders. The reason for that is I'm sure many of you, if you're like myself, have already reached out to your elected leaders. As you can imagine, they're all getting peppered right now from many angles with a lot of different voices. But if we can come forward with a unified voice and some recommendations that are industry-wide, I think that will help us, knowing that we're dealing with time sensitivity for a lot of this as well. In the retail sector, restaurant sector, many of our industries, we recognize that we don't have a whole lot of time to get this figured out here. We've got to move quickly, and one way for us to do that is to bring recommendations from all of us together. So we hope one thing that comes of this is that we can come together with some recommendations as an industry, not just as individual businesses. Thank you all for your time. I know you're all dealing with a rapidly changing environment on an hour-by-hour basis, so taking this hour out of your day to talk with us is much appreciated. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Jonathan. The chat box, again, access that by hovering your cursor at the bottom and opening that up. That's where you can post your thoughts, concerns, questions. For what it's worth, we had some issues come up yesterday with the food listening session, and the city government is already acting on some of those recommendations. We hope to have decisions in the next 24 hours. So one of the most useful things you can do to help us help you is to post that stuff in the side there. I know that yesterday we were joined by Council President Dana Sandy, and I mentioned that because Brian Lee from Northern Air has posted a question about amortizations for local gap loans. We can't provide all the answers here today. We're mainly trying to get concerns and requests, questions from you, and then provide answers at a further date. But I wonder, is Council President Sandy with us today? Do we know? Does he have any a response to Mr. Lee's question? I'm not sure if he was able to join or not. Very good. So how can we tell our staff that we have to reduce hours and not knowing when we get them, not knowing when we'll be able to get them back to normal hours? Business owners or Barry or Keith, this is part of the struggle of being a business owner during these difficult times. Do you have some comment? Paula?
Yeah, it is a struggle. And again, it's not that all of the employees know what's going on. It's just words that they don't want to hear. But as business owners, those are the tough decisions we have to make. Do I spend my time because I know that it's not productive time right now that they're spending? So I'm trying to push the full-time layoffs as much as I can. But all your employees know what we're dealing with and know what you're dealing with.
One thing that I will say, we've heard from a couple of our downtown bars and businesses that have actually taken this time as an opportunity to do some interior work. So one of the bars downtown is really taking this time to almost redo the entire bar top throughout the entire bar. And, you know, it's not going to last the amount of time that we're expecting COVID to last, but taking some of those actions, I know that it's keeping him sane in that same sense of keeping something going on. So for what that's worth, it's a good time to almost look interior too.
I don't want to make this an advertisement for any individual business, but we have a downtown boutique that, like many of the downtown businesses during the construction period, already faced a challenging year. And one of the things that I understand they're doing is making use of this time to get back to the community and doing some volunteer work around school lunches for children. So those are some other opportunities. Doesn't answer the question about how do you tell your employees that you're having to cut hours, but there's that. Go ahead, please.
To resonate kind of what Jonathan had said too, now is a really good time to be shopping local, supporting local. So buying gift cards to a lot of these places, it's an immediate, quick investment into those places that can basically be a way for you to support them in this time when we're trying to figure out what's going on, but also give them a light at the end of the tunnel.
A business card is a 0% interest loan that you can make. You can collect on it later. Barry, you had a caution about those yesterday. Would you mind doing that?
Yeah, clarification. If you buy a gift card and it's from a franchise type business, make sure you buy it from the local website, because if you buy it on the national website, a lot of times the local business won't actually get credit for that sale. So you want to make sure you're actually on the Grand Forks or East Grand Forks business's website so that they actually get that 0% loan, as you called it.
Very good. In fact, a 0% loan that may not have to be paid back. Paul Hanifer mentions, as many of us are already doing, we're watching Congress to see what sort of support is going to come out of Washington, D.C., anticipating that will pass in the next day or two. And then once that happens, one of the first things the city is going to be doing is tearing into that to look for opportunities to make use of resources from the federal government in terms of local programming. Again, one of the things that's most useful to us during these sessions isn't the information that we're trying to provide to you, but the questions and concerns that you might have about what challenges you're facing right now. So the chat box is one of the best places for us there. Keith, one more time about the commerce survey. We all want to.
I saw that Adam
keeping
asked that question. It maybe came up again. And the North Dakota Department of Commerce hopes to have the survey out tomorrow, but they said this week. So I guess Friday at the latest, based on the most recent information. And they'll be working through their local partners, regional partners. So they'll get that to us and we'll get that to the folks in our database. I imagine they'll work through the North Dakota Chamber and all the chambers around the state of North Dakota. So they're looking for one response per business to identify, classify various business needs in those categories. And really, they have a menu of things that they would like businesses to choose. You know, I don't know if it's going to be the top 2 or 3 things that the state could do in response. And they're going to see which ones of those, you know, really rise to the surface in terms of have the greatest support. And I can't make any promises what the state will do, but I assume that they'll use that to inform whatever decisions they make in terms of availability of financial support for businesses. So stay tuned later this week, and we'll certainly get that out to the folks in our database. And I don't want to speak for Barry, but I'm guessing he'll do the same.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's good. That's good. You covered that, Keith. You know, I see Chip Shea asked another question about unemployment benefits available other than SBA loans for the self-employed. And I know there's been I've been involved in a number of conversations related to that. And I'll dig a little bit deeper, Chip, and I'll get you that information to the extent that we've got it at this point. I think that's still a little bit of a moving target yet this week, but I know that's going to come into focus here over the next 10 days for sure. As soon as we get something, we'll get it to you, and I'll keep you up to date. Those of you who are asking some specific questions on here, I know that this whole panel has been taking names, and we've been getting back to you with specific answers to these different questions. So keep putting up more questions in the chat box, because we'll get back to you.
Right, there's a question about the disaster loan with the possible Stimulus Care Act. and the ability to apply for, can businesses apply for both? I don't know if anybody has an answer to that. I don't know if the feds know the answer to that yet, but we can keep that question in mind, and as soon as that answer comes out, we'll try to push out that information.
I see one of the questions about the equity position to back a specific loan. I know Minnesota yesterday came out with a program, announced a program. North Dakota hasn't done so yet, but I know as soon as I saw the Minnesota program, we forwarded it to the North Dakota folks, where part of the actual loan will likely be forgiven in the future. Minnesota's been dealing with closed businesses from a restaurant perspective a little bit longer than the North Dakota side has. So Minnesota, I think, is ahead of us a couple days, for that reason alone. So I think there's some things that we're seeing over in Minnesota that might end up being replicated on the North Dakota side. And the minute we have anything, we'll get back to you, Andy, over at Harley-Davidson.
Good. And a lot of the questions tend to focus on state or federal programs. One of the most useful things from my perspective that came out of yesterday's session was issues that we can address at the local level. Are there changes in city policy or the way that we're doing business that would be helpful to you at this time? That would also be really useful in the chat box. I think someone else was trying to chime in there. And again, some folks offering some answers there. Tiffany letting us know about the Sba Disaster Loan, that it does not require collateral if you're looking for less than $25,000. And so that was a great response to an earlier question about small businesses, because our newer small businesses have just as much need as well-established businesses, especially due to the lack of reserves. Thank you, Tiffany. Keith or Barry, this came up yesterday, a legacy fund. Do you want to just?
I can jump in. I've been to the degree I can watching the governor's press conferences every day at 4 o'clock, and the governor wanted to bifurcate or separate the conversation about what North Dakota's response would be from the funding source. North Dakota, you know, they have the Bank of North Dakota, as you know. We have the legacy fund and other reserves. So what the state of North Dakota is looking for are suggestions on how best to respond. And then I guess I can't speak for the governor, but my sense is that based on that, they would take a look at what funding source is most appropriate. But I understand the sentiment. The state of North Dakota has a relatively large reserve. It's building, but that could potentially be a funding source for programs that are identified to meet the need.
One of the process issues that's going to happen here is the city's legislative committee will be taking information from these listening sessions, and then we'll get together with Team Grand Forks. Team Grand Forks is a collaborative legislative effort that's been led by Barry from the chamber, and I think one of the things that we'll be exploring is the legacy fund. But Barry, do you want to take a moment? Not everybody will know about Team Grand Forks. Can you describe that so people have a better awareness of that?
Yeah, I'm glad to do that, Brett. It's a coalition between the city, county, Chamber of Commerce, EDC, and UND. And we meet on a monthly basis, and we typically will put together a list of issues that benefit the Grand Forks region, Grand Forks community, that we all get behind. Each legislative session, we come up with a different list. Medical school, law school, everything out of Grand Sky, just to name a few. I'm sure after this we'll have several things related to this crisis, or one or two things related to this crisis that'll be included in that list as well. So stay tuned on that. And I know that this crisis is not going to be over in a couple days, a couple weeks. We're certainly going to feel some of the economic impact. So we're going to definitely have a lot of conversations about what we can do. Again, we're going to be seeking a lot of input from businesses in terms of where they feel they need the most help, and that's why we're doing these listening sessions. So please keep sending the messages in the chat room, and we'll definitely get back to you and use a lot of that information going down the road.
I mentioned at the beginning that Grand Forks is a particularly collaborative community. this is one of the cases in point. Team Grand Forks is known at the legislature and in DC. Some communities go with competing demands or requests. Grand Forks has a reputation for going with a unified voice. We bring solutions to the state and feds and let them know what we're doing well here and what they can do to help us do even better. So Team Grand Forks is essential to that. We had a question about unemployment for the self-employed. Barry or Keith or anyone else, any response to that?
I think Barry talked about it a short time ago. I'm not aware specifically, and I think that's something we need to dig into.
Very good. And we have a question for businesses that have been forced to close or may be forced to close. Does the city have a plan to refund or discount next year's license fees? Thanks, Matt. That is exactly the kind of question that we're looking for. That's going to be captured right now, and that will be going to the city's legislative committee, which will then advise the council, create a package of recommendations. City council will be meeting quite possibly on a more often than regular basis. We'll be meeting on an as needed basis, possibly, to make decisions as quickly as possible. So we'll be considering that one, and we'll try to get word out to everybody about that.
Brett, if I can just add something, I know that I talked earlier about the importance as we bring recommendations to state and federal leaders that we try to come with some unified recommendations industry-wide. I also want to recognize that each individual business might have individual challenges. And at the beginning of the call, we referenced, yes, on yesterday's call, there was a potential licensing issue that has been addressed since then by city leaders. I also recognize that this might not be the most comfortable forum for you in the chat box either to talk about specific issues going on with your business. So I want to be sure to offer to all of you that whether it's any one of us on this panel, if one thing we have the ability to do at the local level, I think better than the federal level, is to address specific problems going on with specific businesses that might be happening because of this. And if you want to reach out to one of us individually, just know that any one of our panelists here are more than willing to take specific issues to city leadership and try to find solutions to that. So please don't feel like this avenue is the only avenue that you have to reach out to us to get things addressed. We're all available to you as individuals as well if you'd like to talk to us privately.
Very good.
Another thing I would just add to that, that's a great point. I know Keith, myself, a lot of the panelists, we've read a lot of those resource materials that we've sent out. Some of them are just links to 40 other links. So if you want to have us kind of help cut through that and get to your specific question a little quicker than just kind of clicking randomly for an hour on some of those links that we're all providing on our websites and in our emails. Our cell numbers are on almost all of those emails. I know mine's on every email I send out, and I'm happy to answer questions basically day or night on my cell phone, 701-317-1555. I would ask you wait till 4 o'clock till this session's over, and I'm happy to take any phone calls and try to cut through some red tape for you too.
Good. And Courtney Jensen has responded to the unemployment insurance question, noting that Governor Burgum signed an executive order on Friday, March 20th to assist business owners in the receipt of unemployment insurance by temporarily eliminating income reduction requirements for business owners. Another question, is there any talk of business rent assistance or help through landlords for small businesses? We're not able to offer any promises or guarantees, but I know that Council President Sandy is talking to the banking community to find out what plans from national banks or local banks are being considered, either for that form of assistance or mortgage forbearance or other issues. So when we get that answers about that, we'll work that out as well.
I also just got a message from somebody who's unable to be on the chat, but only thing that matters in retail right now is keeping the money in town, whether a person needs shoes or whatever it is, the idea of taking on more debt is one thing that nobody, and this is something that we heard yesterday, taking on more debt is not the most positive for small businesses. So it is something that we have heard. So thank you for that feedback.
Good. And then there's a question also about sanitation and recycling fees. Again, fantastic idea. That's going to go forward to the city and the legislative committee for review. We'll be looking at that as quickly as possible. Can there be some modification? Clearly, if people are continuing to be making income and can pay those fees, we all need to be doing what we can right now. But we will take that request forward and see what the city can come up with in terms of possible consideration of those fees. Another thing, in your various networks, you may be aware of best practices or some innovative practices around the country that we may not have heard of at the local level. If you want to make us aware of those, please, we're interested in any ideas for supporting the local business community, especially retail at this time.
Brett, I just received a message about a couple for job service points, if I could just mention.
Please.
Number one, I think everyone, obviously unemployment is of a major concern for separated employees. Dusty Hildebrand, who's the executive director, just wanted me to remind folks that folks can earn up to 60% of their salary through a period of time through unemployment benefits. So, that's a tremendous immediate resource. Number two, they have a resource of referrals for any employees that are separated. They're looking for new and maybe even temporary opportunities. And so I just encourage employees to reach out to job service to see what options exist.
Carol is asking about Girl Scout cookies right now. This Girl Scout cookie season is being dramatically impacted. These listening sessions are being extended beyond the traditional for-profit business sector. And I believe that the city's planning department, Meredith Richards and Andy Conlon, are working right now on putting together a listening session kind of identical to this for this Friday. That'll be moderated by City Council Rep Katie Dockler. I believe that's the current plan. So for nonprofits who might be online right now, we're interested in your questions today, but also there'll be a special listening session for nonprofits on Friday.
Yeah, Brett, we'll be hitting send on an email here in a few minutes to 125 nonprofits that we have on our list. So you're absolutely correct. It's Friday, 3 o'clock, same time as these sessions for the nonprofit community.
Because the chamber doesn't just represent for-profit, you represent all businesses, for-profit and nonprofit businesses.
Thank you.
Thank you. If Minnesota, and here's something I'll note quickly. Paul from East Grand Forks has been posting some information about Minnesota. We are two cities, but we are one community. And here's a question from 3rd Street Clinic. If Minnesota closes borders, what is Grand Forks' plan, along with East Grand Forks and surrounding communities that depend on shopping and services like ours and Inspire Pharmacy? Are there individuals in Grand Forks that are working with Minnesota? I believe that part of the command structure in Grand Forks is daily communication with East Grand Forks. We're concerned not just about the business sector, but also recognize that most of the healthcare in our shared community is on this side of the river. We're going to be experiencing not just COVID, not just economic crisis, but we're going to be getting hit with the third whammy of flood. Currently, weather patterns are as promising as they could be, but it also is quite clear that we're going to have a flood this season, and that's going to result in at least some bridge closures. So that is being discussed at the highest levels. FedEx office has limited print service to online and email, but we're able and willing to help with any signage, flyer, or handout needs. Well, thanks for that offer there. Very good. is there a web page or something that people should go to get more information about support services from FedEx? Matt's also asking for that. And then for those of us that went through the Startup Grand Forks program through the city and the Bank of North Dakota, is there a possibility of extending our loan terms should this virus impact us for a longer than anticipated time? Jonathan, Keith, myself, that is a question that we will take to the Growth Fund Committee and work with the EDC and check in with the Bank of North Dakota to see what's possible there. Absolutely. How do we encourage the community to support local retail while being sensitive to people's restricted budgets during these times? Barry, do you want to speak one more time about your work with the Herald on supporting local?
Yeah, the list of the local businesses, it's on the Grand Forks Herald website. They've also published it, I believe, 3 times now in the paper. And please do, if you're a business or nonprofit and you want your hours and any specific things posted, business hours at gfherald.com. And I see they just put it up on the screen. The Herald is doing this as a public service, and we really appreciate that. Corey told me this morning that the list was the longest article that he has ever seen in the Herald. It was over 6,000 words, which is a really, really lengthy story for the Herald. So the response to this site has really been overwhelming. And it's a great place to get information out about what you're doing in your particular business or nonprofit. Please do send your hours and your information about your business to the Herald, and they'll go through that and put it on the site.
Very good. And FedEx has put up some information in the chat box. A question from Curtis Regan. Has the city considered any type of property tax relief? The city is busily looking at a variety of options to support the community during this economic crisis. So again, we're not here to provide answers today, but just to take questions like that and to move them forward to the appropriate partners. So in this case, the city, and that'll be that will be considered. No promises. I had a conversation with the North Dakota Trade Office. They are saying that shop local isn't just for those businesses. Shipping from national sources is jamming up the postal systems and making supply chains even slower. Oh, Courtney, that's fantastic information and news for us to get out. So it isn't just avoid buying online and instead support local business, but buying online right now is actually adding to the problem. So I'm gonna, I don't know if my wife is listening or not, but I'm gonna take that message home to make sure that we're buying everything we can local. Shop local, yes.
Say, Brett, these comments are coming in pretty rapidly. Matt Bonser posted that Bank of North Dakota just released student loan relief options. So I tried to find it on my phone. I couldn't. But anyway, people should be aware of that, and obviously for themselves personally and employees.
Keith, I think Andy Conlon posted the link too in the chat box. They're following, so should be a link there for people to find.
Excellent. Thank you.
Actually, if she's willing, can we unmute Courtney Jensen from the North Dakota Department of Commerce? Really valuable voice to hear from us.
Hi, sorry, I was actually working on laundry as we're talking. My apologies. I have to educate all of my children and talk with all of you. I get to talk with all of you. I have to educate my children at home. Let's prioritize that. So one of the things that is really a value right now is making sure that we're getting out these stories to the news. And that's not just in your local community, it's also getting it out to us at the state level. So when we're talking about things like what I'm saying now, which is shop local, not just for supporting your local community, but also for preventing critical supplies from getting through to our hospitals and to our supply chains that are giving our local businesses what they need to be in business. We need to get that out as much as we can to our media. So whatever I can do to help you guys get interviews with the trade office or whomever you need to get that out. Also, right now, everybody is very, very excited about the idea of positive news. If you have stories about collaborations that you're working with, please send them up the chain to me. I'll do what I can to get them out. But those positive stories also will encourage our retail sales. And you guys as Grand Forks, honestly, you are really ahead of the curve. And if you repeat that to any of the other groups that I am involved with, I'll get very upset and I'll have to deny it. But you guys have good leadership, you have collaborative businesses. Every single one of the businesses that I've talked to has ended the call with, is there anything I can do to help you? Which is just an unprecedented thing in this time. I had a beautiful conversation with Sandy, I know at least earlier from Bully Brew. She was on the meeting. She's talking about utilizing her drive-through for pickup for other products. Great things, great stories like that. I think that your local leadership has done a fantastic job of passing on information. And as uncomfortable as it is to have Keith poking at me and saying, yes, but, can I get some more information? He's doing a fantastic job of advocating for your community and getting the most up-to-date information. So really following what your leadership is putting out, it's going to be very up-to-date. And so if anybody has questions for me, feel free to send a message in the chat and I will do my best to follow up with you or have one of your local leaders connect you to me if it's appropriate.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking the time to join these sessions, Ms. Jensen. I know you were here yesterday as well. Barry, your work with the Herald, can we get that word out? I hadn't thought about the supply chain in that way, that it wasn't just important to buy local, to support local, but also that ordering online right now is putting our supply chain at risk. Yeah.
Anytime they can keep the trucks moving, it's going to continue to be important. A couple other things on the whole business supply chain piece, and is we just have to just understand that things are going to take time, and limit what you actually to buying to what you actually need. Don't clean off the whole shelf. I invited a couple other retailers here who have had that experience, and quite frankly, they were just too busy to be on today. But I know that would be the message that they would tell people.
Okay, we have a note from Adam Kurtz from the Herald letting us know that he's on the job, he's working on that. And here's an interesting post. Paul Hanifer, projects around the area are getting delayed, but product has shipped and will arrive without the ability to put in place due to various restrictions. If you have available warehouse space, let him know. Paul, could you give us some contact information where people could contact you? Paul has vendors contacting us on a somewhat regular basis, and they're full up with their own product. So the need for shared warehouse space.
Brett, one other thing I'd want to give a quick shout out. The Herald has been doing a story almost daily on some creative partnership. The drive-through for other products is kind of a creative idea. And Adam has been pursuing a story like that just about every day. That's been in the paper. Jonathan, you had a couple examples earlier. I think if we can show some of those creative examples in the newspaper, I think we're going to see some of our businesses calling each other and working even more closely together in coming weeks. It's been amazing to me to see how creative some of our local businesses have been to keep a revenue stream. And so get some of those stories to Adam. I know Adam is easy to reach over at the Herald, and he'll help get the word out. And hopefully we can steal some good ideas and keep the economy going as long as we can here in Grand Forks.
We're getting near the end of our hour. Adam has just posted his email address. If you've got those stories, he's very interested in hearing them. Tomorrow, we'll be having a similar listening session for the manufacturing sector. On Thursday, a session with professional services. And on Friday, Council Representative Katie Dockler will be hosting a session for the nonprofit community. The intention is to collect these ideas, share them with state departments like Commerce, the Governor's Office, our congressional delegation, etc. Also to take them directly to City Council, where we're hoping to act on these ideas as quickly as possible. I don't want to shut down the discussion. We've got some time, so please feel free to continue to share. But in closing, I'll kind of go through our panel again. Any closing comments? Jonathan, we ended with you, so why don't we start with you on the way out here?
Sure, thanks, Brad. I would just echo what I said earlier, that I think both Blue and I and Barry all put our contact information in the chat box there. So feel free to reach out to us privately if you have specific questions or if there are specific challenges facing your businesses. Again, I just want to echo that we recognize the time sensitivity of this, and are working round the clock. Most of us, I know I was having very late night conversations with some of the other panelists last night. So just know that that we're dedicated to this, and we understand that you're all working crazy hours to try to make ends meet. So we're committed to working crazy hours to help you however we can too. So again, I know that time is precious right now for all of you, so I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this today, and look forward to chatting with you more in the near future. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, Jonathan. Blue, anything in closing?
Yeah, I apologize if it looked like I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to pay attention to two things. A couple different people from here have been texting. We have a couple ideas on some things that we might be running with. And so like Jonathan said, my info is on there. Please contact me. We're trying to figure out how to tell people to shop local. And thanks, Courtney, for that supply chain message. That's huge to think about, because it's a lot of people would like to shop local, but in their mind, it's shop easy. And so to know that right now we've made shopping local the shopping easiest way we can. So I want to really help broadcast that of, look, the nice flannels that you've always wanted, instead of having to go online and order them, you can actually have them delivered to your house right now faster. So thinking of things like that, please come to us with more ideas. We love hearing from you. That's it.
And I'm going to have the chamber finish this up. So Keith, would you go next?
Sure. Absolutely. Thanks the panelists, but most importantly, thank everyone who's on this call, who's contributing ideas and asking questions. This is our second call, but there's already, and I'm not going to run down them because we have 3 more sessions, but in my mind, there's a couple of things that are rising to the tops in terms of common themes. So this conversation and the information we've gained has been extremely valuable. So I just want to thank everyone for participating.
Very good. And Barry, any closing comments from you, and especially Ms. Anderson? Thank you so much for joining us today, Barry and Paula.
Yeah, I guess what we all need to remember is what's going to help us all get through is the communication amongst all of us, the new relationships that we're making and not being afraid, and in using those relationships and connections and creativity. And it's new times, and we just need to use each other. We're all here for each other, and we're all here for the greater good of our community. And we need to use each other and just stay in communication and stay strong and shop local.
Anything else, Barry?
He summed it up very well. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. The intention is that these sessions will be ongoing. We don't fool ourselves for a moment that we've heard everything that we need to hear today. On the other hand, I don't know that we're going to have the bandwidth or the need to do individual sessions for each sector. We're going to be figuring that out over the next couple of weeks, but there will continue to be listening sessions in one form or another through the chamber membership, EDC membership, DDA, etc. We'll get word out to the community about when sessions like this will be held, and in the meantime, we'll be getting information out as quickly as we can, and most importantly, engaging the decision-making process. I said at the beginning that these are strange, once-in-a-lifetime challenges that we're facing. We're going to all look back and remember what we did during this crisis. And here in Grand Forks, we're going to look back and remember that we came together as a community and came out of it stronger. And with that, I'll say goodbye to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.